Welcome to the Global International Pedagogical Forum, IPF 2021. My name is Karen, and I would like you to welcome our today's guest, Professor Anupam Varma, the current president of the World Society of Virology, ex-president of Indian Virology Society, and an elected fellow of the National Academy of Science of India. Good day, Professor Varma. We do appreciate you took your time to participate in the forum and to answer some of our questions. Thank you so much.
My pleasure to be with you.
All right, so it has been almost a half year since the world learned about COVID-19. The pandemic has already spread around the globe, and there are a lot of talks about the second and the third waves. In this regard, I would like to know your opinion, Professor Varma. Will there be the second or the third wave of this virus?
Well, in fact, second as well as the third wave is already on. And the world has faced both the phases. And currently the third phase. The good part is that it is plateauing at the top in the world scenario. Indian scenario is a difficult one to predict because we are continuing to increase the number of persons getting affected by the coronavirus, COVID-19. We are adding more than 50,000 people in fresh infections every day. However, there is a good part, and the good part is that the number of deaths in India due to coronavirus have been minimal. Overall, 2%. But if we take only last 2 weeks, it's less than 0.6%. So the third one, the second, of course, has been there, and we know the reasons why it has been there. Anything else you want to know about this from me?
For 6 months that we have, or a bit more, even for we've heard about COVID-19, we know about that. We heard a number of constantly changing symptoms which characterize COVID-19, like dry coughing, skin irritation, loss of smell, and many others. So what are the real or the most common symptoms caused by this virus, and why they vary in different cases?
Well, actually, I'm not the right person to answer this question, but I will answer it from the virology point of view. Because I must tell you in advance, I told you earlier, that I'm a plant virologist. So my answers are related to virology, not the clinical aspect of it. As far as I know, because I myself was tested for COVID. And anybody getting fever, dry cough, is a candidate to be tested. So I was also tested. That was way back in the first week of April. The patient, I can tell you that what is there. Fortunately, it was negative. Difficult. There are many more people who are asymptomatic. And asymptomatic infections in the case of viruses is a common phenomenon. It's not something new. Now, asymptomatic people who show no signs and still carry the virus, that is the difficulty, and that's why in some places we have had this unexpected spread. Required much larger testing of the people to see who are infected and not infected. So we are still, I think the data are still emerging as to how I say in India, perhaps it is the diet of Indians that makes them more resistant to infection. And that's why you have more asymptomatic infections here. But there's no evidence. You ask me evidence, it's difficult. People, it's very difficult to generate this information. But our local Ayurvedic system, which is traditional medicine system here, there are a lot of things which come in to improve your immunity, general immunity. And that may be helping that people are more asymptomatic. But the fact is that this trend continues. I must add here, in the beginning of the pandemic in India, for the first 5 million patients, which took a long time to reach, the death rate was high compared to what it is today. So today the death rate is 0.6%. That shows that people have developed some kind of medication for the people who were infected, and they recovered faster. Fewer people dying.
Okay, but I just would like to
but
make
this
it.
is all. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just to make it clear for our audience, is it true that people who already had COVID-19, this infection, they cannot be reinfected? Or is it not the truth fact?
Well, again, this question can be best answered by clinical people because they would know the case. From the virological point, a person, when he gets infected by a virus, should have what is called as immunity. And that immunity would be there, so he should not get infected by the same virus, or you can specify further, same strain of the virus. Because once you feel that, okay, one has infection, for example, one can get COVID-19 infection, and one can also get flu infection. Although, as we go, is coming with the mixed infections, the cases are there, and the severe vary. Experts explain, throw more light on this.
Then what about the fact that a significant number of patients who were infected, but they still claim that they suffer from some residual symptoms? It seems that some of those symptoms keep coming back. So now we were talking about some kind of body's immunity against this virus that was built up. What is this case then?
And from a virological angle, they felt that they have recovered. Actually, they did not get rid, got rid of the virus infection. Some real infection was continuing. And that's why what you can call the risk of infection, which occurred. It may not be the case of infection. It's the original infection continuing. Again, the difficulty is very, very difficult. You find in this category.
Right. Now, Professor Varma, I would like to talk more about the tests for coronavirus. There are two main kinds of tests for COVID-19 that we know is PCR and the blood test. The first one, which uses the sample swab from inside the throat or nose to identify the genetic material of the virus, or in other words, to say if the person is infected, while the blood test helps to detect the virus antibodies, which shows if a person was infected. So the question is, are these tests reliable and how informative are they?
Well, basically, diagnosis is a common thing for viruses. Without proper diagnosis, it's very difficult to detect or even treat. As far as testing for the nucleic acid is concerned, the test is very reliable. It's a robust test, what we generally say as RT-PCR. And that is what is being used world over for the diagnosis of infection. The only thing is it's a very expensive test and takes time. So to either detect the antigen in the whether it is infected or not, that is being done in many countries. India is doing it a lot. You might have heard about it. And the third one is the antibody test to determine whether the person was infected, and if he was infected, then he would have antibodies. So that is very important. The test number 1 and 2, which I said this, they are complementary to each other. So if you find, for example, antigen positive case, you are sure that the person is infected. But antigen negative case, you have to go further in case he's showing symptoms. One has to decide somewhere to restrict the number. So that's hello.
Hi there are some technical issues and your video and the sound is lagging. So would you mind if we will restart and we will continue from this question?
Okay.
Okay, now Professor Varma, I would like to talk about the tests for coronavirus. There are two main kinds of tests for COVID-19, PCR and the blood test. The first one, which uses the sample swab from inside the throat or nose to identify the genetic material of the virus, or in other words, to say if the person is infected. While the blood test helps to detect the virus antibodies, which shows if the person was infected. So the question is, are these tests reliable and how informative are they?
Well, both these tests are very reliable and they are very important. The first test, which you said where the swab is taken, that is to detect the genetic material, that is RNA in the case of this virus, and that is done by PCR. And actually the PCR system which is used is called RT-PCR. This is common for detecting all the RNA viruses. And this is a very reliable test. So you are sure if it is positive, it is positive. The second one is the blood test in which, as you rightly said, the antibodies are detected. And that has its own importance, more from epidemiological angle, to see how many people have been infected by this virus at a particular time. But I would like to add another information here, that the swab test is also used for what is known as antigen testing. That's a serological test. And for that antigen testing, You then decide that's a serological test because RT-PCR takes a longer time. This serological test can be done quickly, and one can find out if a person is positive, that is certain it is positive. If he is negative and shows symptoms, any of those symptoms, then one has to go for RT-PCR test. So that at least we have definite good diagnostic or detection system for this virus.
Right, now it makes absolutely clear this situation about tests. And you know, one of the last big announcements around COVID-19 was that Russia invented and registered the first vaccine in the world against this virus. And experts from different countries state that there is no scientific information on this vaccine. Nobody actually knows what this vaccine is. Professor Varma, could you please name the contraindicators to vaccination, if there are any, and what side effects might appear after vaccination?
It's very difficult for me to answer the question because, as you said in the beginning, as the experts are saying, we do not know anything about this vaccine, which is known as Sputnik V, which is a nice name. And I would only say that it's a hope for the millions of the people if it comes up. Now we have to start believing people that they are developing vaccine. I'm sure before it's available for the public, all the tests, the safety tests, the efficacy of this vaccine will be determined before it is put to public use. And it's going to take time.
Okay, but from the point of view of virologists, in general, are there any common contraindicators for any vaccination, not specifically about this one?
Well, there are actually 3 or 4 vaccines which are at advanced stage, at various stages of trials, as we get from the reports which are coming. One is in the US, which is being developed, another from Oxford University, which is being developed, and one Indian institutes are collaborating with the Oxford Institute one. Another one is being developed in India, and the vaccine being developed in China. I'm sure there would be many more cases. This is what we are referring to, that at various stages. And we only hope that they will show that they are effective, at least 1 or 2 of them. And then the arrangements will be made to acquire them for different countries. All the countries, I'm sure, in the process of acquiring, because they're investing money on this. So I will not say keep fingers crossed that we have the vaccine sooner than later.
Fair enough. And another question I would like to discuss with you about the vaccine. As we understand, it was not researched yet how does this vaccine affect on people of different age. So does it mean that for each age group there should be a different variation of the vaccine in general?
Again, you are asking for research to be done, and I'm sure people are researching on it. When they are testing at different phases, they are keeping this in mind, different age group. In fact, our PM Modi spoke on August 15 that they are being tested, the 3 or 4 vaccines he said, did not name them, they are being tested at different stages, and that the country is prepared to how to treat or use these vaccines in the population. So those who are working on it, they must be working as to where the vaccination is to be done, which is the group which is going to benefit it. The obvious thing is the frontline workers have to be the first target, whatever the country may be.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, we reached the last but not the least question, Professor Varma.
Okay.
What is your perspective on the upcoming school year? You know, in several weeks, children supposed to come back to study after their summer break. But some countries are seriously concerned about these possibility, like the USA, for example, where there are more than 60% of the American parents who are against bringing their children back to school as they do not want to put their children's health in danger.
Well, people have to keep their children safe. If you look at it, the number of people who get infected at different ages, you find least infection in children. Now, is it because they are resistant to infection, or is it because they have been isolated and kept in safe environment away from the infection, which I think is mostly the case? This may be other factor that those children who get infected, they have the ability to fight it out faster, because in young body you have the capacity to fight a foreign antigen which is coming in, whichever the foreign it is. But you don't want to experiment with your child. So I'm with those parents in the US who want to keep the children away from the school till we get a vaccine. This is where the vaccine development is important. It's not only in the US, in India also, schools are closed. And therefore, we find less and less infection. In fact, it is surprising, the most of the infection is in the age group of 18 to 45. And which is this population? This is the population which is going to work or going to sports or other activities, which the old and the young are not going. The children are kept away. So I would say that since we have already passed through this stage for how many months now? 8 months.
Yeah.
It started on 31st December. So we have done this. Let's do it. Continue doing it for another 4 months or 6 months. I'm sure by that time the vaccine will come.
So, in your opinion, it should be the decision of the parents, not the authorities of the country, to keep kids?
Well, I don't think authorities will take any decision against the parents' wish. Because if they do, the parents will decide not to send. So it's wise not to take this decision and allow the students or children from going to school only when you feel that you have a safety net around them. And that safety net is what? Vaccine.
All right, it seems that's all for today, Professor Varma. I would like to thank you once again for your time and your opinion you shared with us on these questions. I wish you take care and have a nice day.
Thank you very much. It's very nice talking to you. Thank you and wish you all the best.
Pleasure is mine. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye.